Dave Workman from the Seattle Gun Rights Examiner and Gun Week is with us. Dave, good evening, sir.
How you doing, Cam?
Excellent. All right, so I'm guessing you were glued today to the first hearing, yeah?
Well, it was quite a day. I was impressed with the way that Darrell Issa has laid this out. He's made a case today with the one panel of experts on why he should have the authority to obtain all these documents that he's asked for and then subpoenaed from the Justice Department. And he's also made a pretty good case, I think, and he's laying this out so that he can hold some people in contempt if they don't cooperate.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In fact, we heard today from a number of individuals who testified about the process of congressional subpoenas and what happens if you don't follow them. Todd Tatelman, who is legislative attorney with the Congressional Research Service, their American Law Division, was one of those who testified. We've got a clip here. It's a couple minutes long of Mr. Tatelman. You want to take a listen to this, Dave?
Sure, you bet.
All right. Again, here's Todd Tatelman, who was one of the witnesses today testifying before the House Oversight Committee.
Like my colleague or former colleague Mort Rosenberg, I want to focus a little bit more on sort of the traditional history and sort of lay the groundwork for the congressional prerogative here and the constitutional basis for the power that the committee is asserting to exercise. It's important to note, and I think that all of our written testimonies do so note, that there is a long and consistent practice of legislative oversight of the other branches of government, be they either executive branches or, in some cases, judicial branch and oversight of the courts. That history goes all the way back to the British Parliament and rights of the Parliament against the Crown. It was confirmed and further practiced by the various colonial legislatures in the pre-constitutional era. The early Congresses made absolutely no hesitation, and I'll go through an example here in a moment, about their ability to conduct extensive inquiry and oversight into actions of the executive branch. State courts and ultimately the United States Supreme Court have consistently and overwhelmingly affirmed Congress's constitutional authority to conduct almost exclusive oversight of the executive branch, broad oversight of private persons and parties, and investigations into any and all areas in which Congress feels there is a legitimate legislative purpose.
All right, let's stop there because that keeps going on. But that's I think a fairly good introduction. That what a Representative Issa wants, cooperation from the Department of Justice and ATF with these subpoenas. The DOJ has in essence said, Dave, we're doing our own investigation, and your investigation is getting in the way of our investigation, so we're not going to cooperate with the House investigation. And, pretty clearly, according to the witnesses that we heard today, that doesn't fly.
No, it doesn't. And I think they made it as clear as is humanly possible to the American public that Issa and his committee are fulfilling a duty, a responsibility to look into this, several serious allegations regarding Project Gunwalker and Operation Fast and Furious, and the way that this was conducted by the ATF. And I think that on Wednesday, when Senator Grassley testifies, and when we hear from the ATF whistleblowers who are going to appear before ISIS committee, we're going to see the gloves come off, and I think there will not be a clearer picture than we could find anywhere of how the Justice Department has been stonewalling this investigation from the get-go. And you listen to the hearings today, you watch the hearings, and I can't remember which panelist it was, but one of them made a very succinct point. He said that by stonewalling, by denying something, they've got something that they don't want out there. They don't want to discuss. They don't want people to know. And that's why you do this sort of thing. And that's not the way to operate a government. It's certainly not the way to cooperate.
Right. No, absolutely not. And Representative Issa pointed out that the line from the administration has been that this was a local program, locally developed, locally implemented there in Phoenix, and that just doesn't really jive with everything that we know about this, including some of the emails that were released way back when, I think in February, from former ATF agent John Dodson, where his supervisors are talking about the people in Washington who are paying attention to this case and this project. And if you don't like it and you don't like what we're doing, well, you can go to work at the county jail for less money. Otherwise, shut up, because there are a lot of eyes on Fast and Furious. I think that was the actual phrase that was used.
Yeah, that was that infamous email that Voss sent around.
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a copy of that, along with about 2 inches thick worth of documents, court documents, and letters that have been exchanged back and forth. This has been kind of the culmination of a fascinating story for me, and we've talked about this many times. I started covering this back at the first part of February, and the deeper I got into this, I think the deeper you got into this, we discovered that there is just almost a twilight zone going on here with this investigation. We've got the agency that is in charge of, or supposed to be in charge of, interdicting illegal gun traffic.
Yeah.
They've been engaged in illegal gun traffic to the cartels in Mexico, and these guns are starting to show up now more and more. They popped the former mayor of Tijuana down there the other day.
Mm-hmm.
They found some of the Gunrunner guns at his place. They had a raid about 3 weeks ago. The Mexican military raided one of the big drug cartels. One of their helicopters was shot down, and they rounded up a whole bunch of Gunrunner guns in that. And I think one of them was a 50 caliber Barrett that these guys had allowed to walk across the border. And yet they still insist that the bad guys are getting these guns from the gun dealers. The Brady Center was out with this. We gotta concentrate on these bad gun dealers. And I'm sorry, but that dog no longer hunts. And I think when the smoke clears on this, the American public is going to see that this administration, whether it deliberately did it or otherwise, contributed to the violence in Mexico. And I guess as a reporter, I've kind of known where this story was going to wind up, and it's there now. We're watching a train wreck.
We are, and I hope that there are more eyeballs that tune in to watch, because our own Cameron Gray was there at the hearing today, and not a lot of media activity at that first hearing. Now, folks who were there and watching or watching online did get to hear some pretty tough questions. Representative Anne Marie Burkle had a statement. I want to share this with you as well, Dave, before we run out of time. Listen to what Representative Burkle had to say.
I just have one question, and then I'm going to yield my time back to the chairman for any further questions he might have. I'd like to ask each one of the panelists, if you look at the circumstances in this case, is there any reason why the Department of Justice should not comply with our request? I'll start with Mr. Rosenberg, and we can go right down. And I think that's just a yes or no answer.
From all that I know, what's in the papers that I received and looking at, there's nothing yet that would dissuade me from saying that they should comply.
Thank you. Mr. Tatelman?
I would be even more cautious than that. I think when you phrase the question as you have, Congresswoman, it's complicated. I think there may be some, in other words, we don't know enough as members of the public, or as based on what we've seen thus far. I mean, I wouldn't feel comfortable answering that question either way. I simply don't have enough information to know for sure whether there's something lurking out there that might give them a more legitimate reason. Based on what they've asserted thus far, it's arguable, but there may be things out there and maybe other information that we're just simply not aware of yet.
Thank you. Dr. Fisher?
Yeah, you're just getting into some documents, some access, so you don't have a full picture, but you have enough of a picture, I believe, that there is at least concern about mismanagement and possible abuse, and I think that the Department of Justice would be very wise to work with your committee. Otherwise, it can be easily interpreted as some kind of an obstruction to make sure that embarrassing information does not come to light.
Thank you, Dr. Fisher. Professor.
As things stand now, they owe you the documents. It's their job to make a record that would support keeping anything back. And so far, they haven't set out to make such a case.
There you go, Dave. All of the experts testifying, and just put it bluntly, any reason why DOJ should not comply? You had one individual, Mr. Titleman, who was like, "Well, we don't really know enough to make a decision." All of the others, based on what we know, yes, they should comply.
Absolutely, and in deference to Tillman, I'll tell you something, Tillman. I mean, I was speaking to one of my sources over on Capitol Hill the other day. I wasn't there; I was on the phone with him, so I don't fly all around the country. But I was talking to a source who told me flat out, he says, we really don't know how far this goes even now. And the reason for that is because these documents have not been forthcoming. And to be honest with you, I think that's the reason these documents have not been forthcoming. They don't want the people to know just how far this thing goes.
I think you're right. Well, Dave, Wednesday should be a very interesting and emotional day of testimony, and I have a feeling we'll probably be talking to you later in the week about it.
I had that suspicion also, so I'm keeping my dance card open. I lost count of the number of times that Watergate was mentioned today, but I think we're going to hear some more of that on Wednesday.
Yeah, I think you're...
The cover-up is here, and the cover-up is always worse than whatever else they're investigating. You start covering things up, that's bad. That's a bad sign.
Talk to Anthony Weiner about how the cover-up can be worse than the crime. Hey,
well,
Dave.
yeah, I tell you what, if he'd have covered up in the beginning, we wouldn't be having this problem with him. So
there is that. Sometimes the cover-up can prevent the scandal. Dave, thank you so much, sir. We'll talk to you later in the week.
You betcha. Nice talking to you.
All right, you too, sir. Dave Workman, Seattle Gun Rights Examiner and senior editor of GunWeek.com.